Hey, now we're on. Promise I'm not playing on my phone. I'm just making sure we're live. So, I'm Eloy. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. I have struggled with, obviously, anger. I've struggled with codependency. I've struggled with pornography. I've struggled with alcoholism. I've struggled with stage fright. It's probably easier to list what I haven't struggled with right about now than what I have. Who are you?
I'm.
You're
Y'all
on.
can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Marcus, a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with anger, anxiety, stage fright, and that's just about it. I gotta make it weird.
This, y'all applauding. He's like, it's easy for y'all to applaud. I'll teach you a little secret. You see all these people out here? Picture them in chicken costumes.
Nah, I'm just gonna laugh the whole time.
Well, so tonight we're going to talk about anger. And when we were planning this, I was actually supposed to do this last year with Marcus, and I think he prayed for like the snow to come, and it happened. Like you were not ready for this. I don't think I was either. But we were supposed to do this last year, and when I was planning this last year, you know, we've always done things where it's always like the leaders on stage, and it's always the adults. But I know that when I was growing up, struggled with a lot of anger, and I wanted to incorporate that because I feel like the program that we have here with Oasis needs to be shown more. And I can't say enough about what Cindy and Reggie do in there every Monday night, the sacrifice that they do. They didn't know they were going to get a shout out, but there they go. And it's not a CR, it's not a Monday or Sunday if you're not called out, Reggie, right? So, but I wanted to showcase and I wanted to talk about the struggles because not only does anger affect adults, but it affects, kids and teens. And I contribute a lot of what went on in my older years because of some of the things that I didn't face and didn't know how to talk about when I was in my teens. And that for me, was just a snowball effect. The relationships that I lost with my dad and my brother for a long time. The fact that my family didn't want to be around me a lot because they didn't know which personality they were going to have. It's been a joke for a long time that there's two versions of me. There's Eloy, which is the happy one, and then there's Chris, which is the more angry one. And we haven't seen a lot of Chris. We saw him a little bit last week, but we haven't seen a lot of him lately. And so, like, I strive more to not let that anger get me, and I strive more to, try to be an example because I remember what it's like to be in your shoes. They weren't that bright, but I remember what it was like to be in your shoes and go through a lot of those things because I do regret the time that I missed with my dad, the time that I missed with my brother, and just a lot of the regrets that I have that I can't go back to some of those family members and say, I'm sorry for the way I acted. You have anything you want to say?
I honestly don't even know what to say.
Just whatever you think. If you think of something in the middle of this, just go ahead. You want to start reading, go ahead. Or we'll just sit here in silence.
Obviously, we've all experienced anger. Sometimes it can be harmful and injustice. These are physical ways, responses like quick heart rate, sweaty palms, kind of like right now. Racing
That's
thoughts.
just nerves.
Anger feels like an emotion that is outside of our control, as if we can't help but react in a certain way.
It is natural for us to experience anger. And when you have a healthy coping skills when it comes to your anger, anger can be a very helpful tool at the same time. I know that seems contradictory, but it can be. However, unhealthy coping skills can lead to some dangerous anger and can lead to many different types of abuses. It could be alcohol, it could be substance, it could be a physical abuse, it could be a mental abuse. For me, when I was the angriest in my adulthood is when I was going through my divorce. And it was always easy to point and say it was always my ex-wife's fault. It's like, I was her fault. Looking back, I reversed that. It was a lot of my fault. And there was a lot of give and no take on my side. But back then I couldn't see that. So I was always angry. So the anger turned into drinking, and the drinking turned into, I really can't say that word, but like not a very good person. I had very different ultimatums and agendas on my plate back then when I was drinking because I wanted to be the life of the party. I wanted to be the cool guy, and I wanted to be the guy that everybody envied. But at home, I was always mad, I was always depressed, I was always drinking, and adding those things up just never turned into anything helpful.
Um, with me, my anger isn't just anger. It's every emotion that I have, I convert to anger because it's easier to deal with. When you allow anger to spiral out of control, it can have severe consequences on physical health, mental health, and relationships. Relationships, anger can cut deep and cause people to lose trust and feel unsafe, especially children. Um, I am that child. My father struggles with it, and I guess it was kind of passed down. So I'm not gonna say it's genetics, but it's genetics.
But you always know that there's a way to stop it. You don't have to pass it on to your children when you have them, which better be like another 10 to 15 years from now. But you can stop that. You can change that because I've seen, not only in myself, but like with my dad, I've joked a lot that we're from Hispanic heritage, and apparently anger is just a quick trigger for us. I inherited it from my dad really well, which he inherited it from his. But the thing is, there's ways we can go about overcoming that. Like, we don't have to let that define us. We don't have to let that lead us and teach our kids the same thing. In Ephesians 4:31 and 32, it says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all the malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God Christ forgave you." So, how do we cope and how do we limit our anger? Do you have an idea?
How do I cope?
Yeah, it's right there.
How do I cope? My bad.
It's right there in the red.
Um,
I gave Marcus red for anger, so he knew which one to read tonight.
what are you trying to say? I'm more angry than you?
Nope. Nobody can be angrier than me.
First, we need to identify the underlying causes of anger. When you experience anger, it is crucial to understand that it often stems from underlying emotions distinguished by it. For example, fear and pain are causes anger, whether physiological, or both. By understanding this concept, you can begin to take a deeper look at your anger and see the real emotions hiding behind it. Perhaps you're fearful that you will be abandoned or fail at your job or in school or on a sports team. So you lash out in anger towards those people you around you to mask these feelings. Or you experience physical pain or pain related to losing a loved one that manifests itself in anger. When you know the underlying causes of anger, you are better equipped to cope with it.
All right, so I got a question for you. When you feel angry and you come off that high of being angry, how do you feel afterwards?
Exhausted. Kind of a sense of regret, and how do I explain it?
It's all right. Well, I'm glad you said regret, because that's one of the things we need to do when we face our anger, when we have something, is you need to think about some of the consequences. The famous Roman emperor Marcus, hey, look, it's you. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. I should have
Aurelius.
done the thanks. Once said, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than it causes of it?" This quote can significantly support navigating anger in our recovery. Many people do not think about the consequences of our anger and the way we react in that moment, causing devastation in our lives. When you feel angry, take a step back to reflect on what you are feeling and why you can save yourself the trouble that often accompanies reacting in that moment. Analyzing the potential consequences of your actions can keep you from acting out, thus helping you to better cope with the emotion. Proverbs 18:20 and 21 says, "You will have to live with the consequences of everything you say. What you say can preserve life or destroy it. So you must accept the consequences of your words." And I also put in here, let's not forget the consequences of our actions. Because if we are angry, it's not always just words. It's always followed by something else. Sometimes it's physical. That's why there's a punching bag behind us tonight.
Do I gotta hit that?
You don't have to, unless you want to. You can do it afterwards, just not right now.
Yeah.
You can only make a first impression on somebody once. And when they say words cut deep, they really, truly mean that. You could say something and regret it but you can't take that back. And you're going to have to work 10 to 20 to 30 times harder to make amends and to get that person to trust or be one around you again after you've said or done something. Words are one thing. Your anger when it comes to being physical is a completely other thing. And I'm so fortunate, I'm lucky that when I was going through my divorce, when I was angry, when I was drinking, I never got physical. There's plenty of times that I put my hand through a wall, but I never got physical towards her. I learned that from my dad. Even though he was always angry and we bumped heads because we were so much alike, the one thing he always taught me, no matter how mad you are, you never hit a woman. Put as many holes as you want in the house, they can be fixed. But don't ever do that. But then I see the flip side of my dad where this man, as they're in their 60s, still opens the car door for my mom, still looks at her like she's the only woman on the planet. And that's where I said earlier, you can change genetics, because I've seen the changes in my dad as he's gotten older. But I also had to confront a lot of those things, and we had to put a lot of those things on the table to say, hey, these are what's wrong. This is why I'm the way I am. Now, I'll say this and you can go back to reading, because we'll talk about it here in a minute. I've kind of joked about this in some of our groups, and I don't know if I've joked about it on stage or not. But when I was in prison, really not cool to journal, especially if you're a guy. And, but I did. Then I would send them home, so nobody would find them. And my mom would tell me, they're locked up, they're safe, don't worry about them. When you come home, they'll be there. What she didn't tell me was that she was reading them. She didn't know the anger that I had towards my brother. She didn't know the animosity that I had towards my dad. It's not till they put it on paper, or I put it on paper, and they read it, that we finally had a basis of what's wrong. It was hard for me to talk to my dad. It was hard for me to have a conversation. And once those letters were in the open, we kind of talked about this one night in one of our small groups, and I can share this because it's my story, not anybody else's. The relief that we had because we finally knew what was going on in our lives. The relief that we had that we could finally start someplace and work our way up. There was no more having to have my dad say, when are you leaving my house? I can't stand you. To, hey, when are you coming home? Like, I haven't seen you in a couple months. It's those changes. Anything you want to share?
There's a point where your anger pushes people away, and sometimes you feel like you have to turn all your emotions into anger so that you don't look weak as a dude towards your father. And I know that's something I experience. I won't let him see me sad. I will only let him see me mad.
There is nothing wrong with that, because I can count on my hand the number of times that I've seen my dad cry. And that was when both my grandmothers died. And I know it's a tough thing. It's a man thing. It's a macho thing. It's a genetic thing. It's a thing through over the years to not show emotion, but it's okay. I'll tell you, like, there's been plenty of times that I've sat on the stage and cried. And who knows how many people have seen it online, or all the times that I've broke down in this church crying. I don't care if anybody sees me weak, because at the end of the day, I know who I am, and I'm okay with that. And eventually, if your dad feels that way now, that may change, because time does change people and time does heal things. And it's okay to show emotion around your dad, because I'm glad that I have a couple stories of my dad showing emotion, because he never saw that with with his dad. So don't let the fact that you feel like you have to be tough and all this around your dad for anything. He'll love you no matter what. All right, you can keep reading.
Many people believe external factors such as other people and situations cause your anger. However, your anger has less to do about what is happening and more about how you interpret it. Common negative thought patterns that trigger anger and substance abuse include over generalizing.
Overgeneralizing.
For example, you always or you never. Also, rigid views, obsessing over how something must go, can increase anger and substance abuse when things go differently than expected. Jumping to conclusions, assuming a person's intentions are to hurt you. Blaming others is also always someone else's fault, not taking responsibility for your actions.
All right, so you mentioned the next to last one, which is jumping to conclusions. I've been through high school, obviously, decades ago. You're there now. How many times have you got mad over a situation, whether it be a girl or a sport or something like that, that you got mad not knowing all the facts?
Uh, Countless. But it's also like, I feel like anger has a lot to do with overthinking. Most angry people overthink, which is a trigger for their anger.
Right. So, what would you do if you were faced with that guy walking through the door right now making you mad? What would you do? Hi, Burgess. What would you do in that situation?
If he made me mad,
Yeah, right now. If he came up here and said something that got you into your feelings and got you angry, what would you do to de-escalate this situation right now?
laugh.
It wasn't one of my answers, but
I would laugh.
I mean, look, you de-escalated everybody else in here, so there you go.
They laughed.
They did.
Yeah, actually, that's something I do whenever I get mad. I'll laugh. Just try to laugh it off and act like it doesn't faze me.
Now, when you get out of that situation, does it faze you? Does it bother you?
Yeah.
So, what are you laughing at?
He's trying to offer me a cookie or whatever that is.
No,
Your
we
distraction.
don't want the chocolate chip cookie. I guess the subject of We Are Real definitely does go on up here on Monday nights. That's why I had you facing them, and I'm facing that way.
Yeah.
So,
Thankful.
anger and addiction are a common pair, and each one worsens with the other. In your attempts to break a substance use, a habit, and regain the authority in your life, anger could be sabotaging your attempts. This is why anger management and recovery is so important. Anger management and addiction treatment should occur simultaneously. If you're aiming for long-term success, without treating underlying anger issues, finding ways to manage urges and implementing coping strategies is the only temporary fix to your problem. If you treat the addiction without healing the rage underneath, triggers should return or could return to the substances or the hurts and the habits that you face, and they will be nearly impossible to fight, and anger will only build up. We're so fortunate every Monday night to have counselors that come in here and let us talk to them, let us cry, let us get angry, let us do a whole bunch of things that we may not have in a normal setting. And they give us that tool out of the kindness of their heart with no money asked. And we're so fortunate for that because not everybody has that opportunity to talk to somebody. And I'm not saying that you have to talk to somebody. For me, I needed, when I was your age, I needed counseling. And we went and I tried, but I was more interested in wanting to hit my dad with that foam wiffle bat than anything else because that's what I saw on TV. And I'm like, that cures every family's issues. Why can't we do that? And we didn't get to do that. And I think that's why I was so mad through my childhood because I never got to hit him with the baseball bat. But I wouldn't do it now. But it's okay to go to treatment. It's okay to talk to somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you had to be put on medication, there's nothing wrong with that either. For a long time, and I still say I am, but for a long time, I needed medicine for being bipolar. The highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, the happiness, the anger. It was exhausting for me. And there was a point in time where I needed medication to help me balance out. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you any weaker. It's just a tool. And it's a tool that you use temporarily. Because there might be a few people that say I might need to go back on it, but whatever. And, but I've learned as I've gotten older and hopefully gotten a little bit more mature that there's ways that I know how to cope with it and deal with it. Again, I joke and Last week was not my finest week. I was overwhelmed and stressed, and everything was just going wrong, and I was letting everything compound on top of each other. And I was forgetting the simple steps of like just slowing myself down because I just kept going at 100 miles an hour trying to fix everything and put out every fire. That's why we have a dumpster fire up here tonight. Trying to put out every little thing that was going wrong, knowing that I can't do it all. But I let all that build and just build and build and build. So all night long, I just was always overanalyzing, overthinking, and just always getting in my feelings about everything that was going on. And I should have just hit the brakes, hit reset, asked for help, and moved on, but I didn't. But that's where some of those tools that I did learn in counseling should have came into play. But again, I just, in that moment, in that time, it just all went out the window.
I know for me, music helps. It's a healthy way for me to calm down. I just zone out, listen to my music.
Now, it's not some of that like earth-shattering, window-shaking music, is it?
No.
Okay.
More like
Not
Brandon
Beethoven.
Lake. Brandon Lake.
There you go.
Some country.
And see, that is another coping skill that you can use. If it takes your mind off of whatever's going on at that point in time, and it's beneficial, and it's going to improve your health for that moment, then it's okay to listen to that music. You know, as long as you're not going out there listening to, no offense, AC/DC or anything like that. Sorry, Kanan. You know, as long as you're not going out there listening to that, putting yourself in more, because there is some music that will put you. I say this because when I drive and I start to get anger, it's easy to go ahead and flip over to that one station that just plays nothing but like heavy metal and just be like, run them off the road. Don't do that. But it's easy to do that. It's harder sometimes to put on that music that you know is going to be beneficial because you don't want to face that you're wrong and it's right.
I also got to get back into working out. That's something that helps out.
We'll talk about that. That's on the next page too, because somebody else will be happy that we talk about that.
All right. Don't worry, it is possible to have successful recovery and balance your anger. So in Romans 51:13, it says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope."
All right, here's some anger management exercises and some tips that we can try when we start to feel our anger coming on. The first one is a progressive muscle relaxation. And this is the process of slowly tensing your muscles and releasing the pressure that has been shown, and releasing pressure. This has been shown to offer benefits of numerous strong emotions. Progressive muscle relaxation is a technique that you can learn on your own and literally implement anywhere. It's well worth keeping in your back pocket. Kind of like right now. Starting to get overwhelmed, you could just, just loosen up a little bit. Just go on.
Dang, voice crack. I think that's why people clench their fists when they're angry.
I clench my jaw. I should have a whole set of new teeth in there for as many times as I've been angry, and I've weighed them down.
Another one is movement. Many individuals who struggle with anger find that the body's response to frustration is easier to channel into activity than it is to completely suppress. If anger makes you agitated and eager to move, try working out, go for a run, hit the gym, or do a quick 10-minute cardio workout.
You think with as many times as I'd have been angry, I'd have been your size if I'd have gone to the gym.
What do you mean?
I mean, for every time I got mad, I should have done something like go for a run, go to the gym, do something like that. But nope, I sit there in my feelings. And I know we joke about that, but you have to make that effort. You can't just say, oh, I should have done it afterwards. You need to do it. Like if you feel yourself getting angry, the best thing to do first, if you feel like it's going to escalate, is just walk away. And then as you walk away, count to 10, count to 20, count to 100, whatever it is to calm yourself down, remove yourself from that situation.
Counting don't help for me. I never understood that, counting.
Sing a song. I mean, if you have a favorite song, as you're walking away from it, in your head, just sing it. I'm serious. See, I mean, you said that, some of the ways you cope is you laugh. Well, I mean, do that too. Like if there's a song, and it doesn't have to be a serious song, if it just takes your mind off that situation, I don't care if you sing the Bluey theme song as you walk away. Sing the Bluey theme song. It's the first thing I could think of. I don't know. I actually, honestly, the first thing I thought of was the Lamb Chop song. But there's a whole bunch of people here that have no idea what I'm talking about. So, well, yeah, I could have done Golden Girls, but I mean, thank you for being a friend. All right. We've gone off the rails so fast. All right, so let's learn about some negative thinking patterns. I think negatively thinking has always kind of been one of my hardest things. I always can think negatively. I saw it change. I knew it was coming. I knew that was coming. Too bad they can't see it on camera because the punching bag blocks it, so. Huh? Yeah, it is, isn't it? I put that on the screen so they could do that. So I knew it was coming. I just didn't know exactly when it was going to happen. We really have gone off the rails. Hang on real quick. Sorry. I'm getting a whole bunch of different phone calls, and I'm kind of worried about what it is. So let's learn about some negative thinking patterns. Men and women who struggle with anger management often have distorted thinking patterns. A person may feel that everything is directed as a personal attack or easily jump to the conclusions. The slow zoom is what's killing me. And we were bowling during that picture, too. That's the sad thing. Like, I should have been happy. We were bowling.
You were losing.
That slow zoom killed me, though. Man, that is... How can I be angry at that? Like, that is me. I think that's worse than my driver's license picture, but anyways. Recognizing and reversing these thoughts can happen through journaling or reflection. And I know we've joked about the journaling, and that picture is just scary. I know we've talked about journaling, we've joked about journaling. I've said this, and I'll say this until it's my time to go home to the Lord, not home tonight. Maybe that too. The best thing I ever learned was to journal. And I learned that from Pastor Jeff. And you don't have to keep it. If you just need to put something, when I say journaling, it doesn't have to be where it's like Dear Diary. You could literally write it down, and if you have the option, burn it. Just get it off your chest. Put it on paper, and then let it go. It's kind of like when we talk about our cross. You know, if we put it on that paper and we acknowledge that we're struggling with something, and then we let it go some way, somehow, at least we're giving it to God. At least we are saying, I trust you enough to help me with this because I can't do it on my own. And ultimately, out of all the joking that we've done here tonight, out of everything that we've talked about, the first thing that we always need to remember is we can't do this on our own. We have to rely on the Lord. But not only do we have to rely on him, we have to give it to him and let him help us with it. He's not going to do it on our own. We have to let him help us, but we have to let him in. And I know sometimes that's hard because we're always scared of the unknown. But it's one of those things where if we don't do it, we're just telling God, I don't need you, I've got it. And then we're just going to go through that same pattern over and over and over. And if we've been in recovery long enough, if we do the same thing over and over and we expect a different reaction or different ending result, what is that called? Insanity.
As you find techniques that work for you, make sure you keep them in mind or write them down somewhere to use whenever you feel angry. But that doesn't mean like you don't have to have self-control. You still have to have self-control to look back at those things, to think about it.
You know, there is no one answer. There's no one answer that's going to be for anybody in here. Everybody's going to have a different way of handling how they get angry. There's always going to be a different way. Like you may get angry one way, then I get angry another way. But that's what makes this program the greatest. We can sit in here, we can go to our small groups, we can go to our step studies, and we can open up about those things. And we may be able to take something from one person that they've experienced with anger, or whatever their hurt, habit, and hang-up is, and apply it in our life. Or we may be able to give somebody else a tip that will help them. You know, that's the greatest thing about this program is you'll never know who's going to walk through these doors, what they're going to say, and who it's going to impact. And I know this doesn't go with our lesson, but the perfect example is when we had a gentleman that was coming here, he had a gambling problem. And we asked him to do his testimony, and he said, man, I don't know if I'm going to reach anybody. It's like, all you need to do is just go up there and share your story. And he did. And that night there was one person in here that struggled with gambling. And he helped her, you know, because she could admit that she had a problem. And it doesn't matter if it's that or if it's the anger. That's what this program is always about, is helping everybody. Because I want to see everybody in this room succeed, just like everybody that sat in these seats before me wanted to see me succeed. So, anger is a significant threat to our recovery, as it can relapse, or as it can be a relapse if it's a trigger to us. To continue on the road to sobriety, you need to learn how to manage it. And before you can begin studying your anger, you must learn how to calm down first. And that's the hardest one, is, like I said, getting yourself out of that situation, putting yourself in a spot where you can think a little bit clearly, analyze things a little bit, you know, better. Because again, we talked about it at the beginning. Think about the consequences. With me and my dad and our anger that we had for so long, I lost 11 years of a relationship with him and my brother. Because all three of us were too stubborn. We were all too much alike to sit down and have a healthy conversation about why we couldn't stand each other. Anything you want to say?
No.
He's a man of many, many words.
Silence speaks for me. Did you talk about the list?
No. Yeah, I gotta read that, don't I? So the biggest thing anger can ruin are relationships. Anger doesn't affect one person. It affects everyone involved in that specific relationship. It can get in the way of people that you love the most, causing damage, and sometimes that damage is irreparable. It causes lack of communication, lack of trust, and overall, the emotional scars. And like we said earlier, the biggest people that suffer sometimes with anger as an adult are the kids. Because they see what we do, and they think it's okay to imitate that. And if I could go back in time and I could fix the relationships that I've messed up with my family, I've said it, and I've said it, and I've said it, it all would stem back from the anger that I had.
It's normal to experience lots of different emotions during recovery. Feeling anger isn't a sign of failure or weakness. Knowing your limits is half the battle. Acting appropriately is the other half.
So this is something that I didn't have prepared, but it goes with it. And I don't know how true it is, but I've always just heard this, and it's always stuck with me, is that the opposite of anger is depression. Because I can go from that high to that low so quick. And if I don't learn how to manage one, I'm not going to be able to manage the other. And like I said, there are so many other tools. We just covered a few tonight that I think would be beneficial, especially if you're anywhere from a teen all the way up to, you know, the oldest person in this room, which probably by the age of it looks to be 45 tonight. So we lost this a long time ago, but my whole goal as I've become more mature and I've become better equipped in life is to not have guys your age go through the same things I did. Because it's easy for us to sit up and say, well, listen to us, we know what we're doing. But it's absolutely the truth. Listen to what we have to say. Because I don't want you to lose time with your dad over small, simple things that could be fixed now. You know, I don't want anybody to lose any time with their family. I don't want anybody to lose anything that could be detrimental in their life. My anger got me locked up multiple times because I didn't know how to handle it. And I lost so many years, not just with my parents, but with my daughter. And now I have a son. that is your age. And boy, I want to shake him sometimes because he is so like me. But I want to give him the tools, and it's not just him. I want to give you guys, maybe not you, but all of you guys, the tools to not mess up like I did, to be a better person for it. Because I'm not getting any younger. I learned that Wednesday trying to run up some stairs. But you guys are the future. And if you let your anger get you, if you don't know how to cope with it, it's going to be a scary place. Anything you have to say before we have to wrap up?
I think I speak for the teens whenever I say this. It's more important to get a hold of it when you're younger because it doesn't get any easier. I've been told it countless times. It only gets harder.
I couldn't say that any better. And again, we're so thankful here on Monday nights that we have a program that you guys can go to, that you guys can feel open about and sharing things that are going on. Because I got to sit through y'all's Angers class when y'all had it in Oasis, and the questions that you asked were some of those ones where it's like, man, brought back a lot of painful memories and a lot of scars that I didn't want to remember. But you said it. It's easier to fix it now at your age than it is mine. And it's easier to mend those relationships now while those wounds are fresh than it is after they've healed. It's always easier to fix a bone now, right after the break, than it is 20 years from now when it's already settled back in. I hope our rambling up here, I hope the funny graphic, I hope what we've had to say up here tonight has helped somebody. And know that if you're going through anger, you don't have to do it alone. You can turn to a leader. You can reach out to anybody in this recovery program, the counselors that we have on Monday nights. We're so thankful that you guys have made the effort to be here and face those hurts, those habits, those hang-ups, face any of that anger that you may have, because you're not going through it alone. There's somebody that's sat in these seats that have gone through the same things that you've gone through. It's easy to say that, but it's even easier to know that because I've sat in those seats when I didn't want to be here, and now that I want to be here. And then we'll look at the future leaders of America right here and know that hopefully we've taught them something that will put us in good hands when I'm in a walker.
Takes discipline.
It takes discipline. You're right. We couldn't say it any better. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all.